Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
WMAL. 6:07 now on this Friday morning, wrapping things up here on a midsummer week and launching into your weekend. But it's going to be a busy day here in the nation's capital. And I think we got you covered with all the top stories. Coming up later in this hour, Tim Graham is going to be our guest from Media Research Center and talk about Colbert and NPR. His Moby Dick, his white whale. Tim Graham has been hunting this whale for decades. He's finally got it. 7:05, Byron York, Examiner. 8:05, Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. And then at 8:35, Chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, Jason Smith. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning.
Onwuka?
Happy Friday, everybody. It is Mrs. Onwuka, actually.
Oh, that's right.
But
he called
we will
you
take
Miss, didn't
Ms. Onwuka.
Ms.
I think it might have been Ms. Yeah, there you go.
What is it, Bernie? Bernie, help us out.
Ms. Oakham?
Ms. Onwuka, you mean, sir?
I love it. You mean Onwuka? Okay, sure. We'll go with that. All right. So there were rumors all day yesterday. Mark Halperin does the morning meeting show on two-way platform, YouTube and other streaming platforms with Sean Spicer.
Yeah.
A lot of people listen to it and watch it. I fill in for Spicer when he's out of town on that show. It's fun. It's neat. And you talk
Larry,
about DC and politics and the media, and it's, right in our wheelhouse, right?
You're so big
Halperin
time that they
says
have
yesterday,
you as a fill-in.
Yeah, it's fun. Halperin, he's a pretty plugged-in media guy, reporter. He knows he's got a lot of sources, a lot of contacts. He says his understanding is that there's a major publication who's been working on a blockbuster Donald Trump, Jeffrey Epstein story. And, expected to drop anytime soon. And it's got receipts. It's got, it goes into their relationship back in the old days, back before Epstein was arrested, back when Trump and he were friends and all this stuff. And that sort of teased out that something big was coming. And it also sort of shed some light on a lot of things. First of all, to me, it shed light on why, because listen, if Mark Halperin knows this story is in the works, politicians know that the story is in the works. The White House knew the story was in the works. Democrats on Capitol Hill. So did you notice in the last few days the Democrats had all been screaming, release everything you've got on Epstein, even though they had never mentioned Epstein their entire life, right? And I think it was because they were sort of setting the table that Trump is hiding something. Trump is hiding something. So now the Wall Street Journal yesterday afternoon dumped the story. And I do mean dumped. Apparently, Jeffrey Epstein, when he was celebrating his 50th birthday, and again, this is over 20 years ago.
Yes.
Jeffrey Epstein, somebody solicited a bunch of personal notes from a bunch of his friends and colleagues and acquaintances to put together like a big birthday card, right? So everybody submitted their own personalized card, and they would put other people do this, right, for big birthdays. So here's the Wall Street Journal headline: birthday letter to Epstein bore Trump's signature, drawing of naked woman. All right, again, by the way, 20 years ago, right? We had to 2003, so over 20 years ago. If you told me that Donald Trump, business mogul, real estate mogul, entertainment mogul, guy who goes to boxing matches, owns casinos, does a television reality show, if you told me that he had once drawn a picture of a naked lady, I mean, it would be absolutely shocking, would it not?
It would be.
Would it? I don't know. I wouldn't be that shocked about it.
I mean, I don't know how close their relationship was, but,
It's a stick figure. A stick figure.
Well, not an entirely stick figure.
Well, no, there's boobs. It's a stick figure with boobs. I'll give you that. And a skirt. And then there's that's right. It's not naked. It's topless. Thank you. You're right. There is a skirt there.
There's a little skirt there.
Come on. We're talking PG-13, not full, All right. Anyway, that said, the story then went on to publish. Now, there's no picture here. There's no screenshot. There's no actual photograph of the so-called handwritten letter, which, by the way, also includes typewriter wording. Like some of the lettering is written on a typewriter, and some of it is handwritten, which doesn't make a lot of sense because this is not like pre-word processor, right? I mean, we had word processors in 2003.
Yeah, of course we did.
And my understanding, I've never gotten a note from Donald Trump, but my understanding is if he writes you a personal note, the entire thing is handwritten. It's not like a combo typewriter handwritten sort of situation. That's what a lot of people were saying yesterday. Here's how the Wall Street Journal interpreted the little handwritten personalized note. It isn't clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. Inside the outline of the naked woman, again, topless stick figure, was a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein, written in the third person. And then it's like a script. Voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Trump, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. So there you go. That's the blockbuster. The birthday message.
So a questionable letter and a stick figure of a woman that a fifth grader probably draws. The fifth grade boy would draw.
Which they claim Donald Trump did in 2003 before he entered political life. And by the way, Trump completely denies it. He said, I never wrote a picture in my life. I never draw pictures of women. It's not my language. It's not my words. And I'll tell you that, I mean, it sounds, it's like.
Sounds very manufactured.
It's like Twilight fan fiction. It doesn't sound like
Twilight.
This is not how two guys talk to each other. It's just weird. It seems completely out of character and not in keeping with the Donald Trump that we've all gotten to know over the years. And by the way, I mean, I'll go ahead and say it. Even if it's true, it's kind of cringe and weird, but it's hardly a scandal, and it hardly connects him to Jeffrey Epstein's escapades.
So, I mean, just the message alone sounds like either somebody who's very high-minded at trying to, imagine what a conversation between them would look like. So it just doesn't seem authentic. And the whole situation is like, okay, so what? But I think they've put themselves in some real hot water here. I would hope that the journalistic standards at the Wall Street Journal are so high that they, wherever the source is, that they can actually authenticate this. Because if President Trump is going to sue them, and he's got a pretty good track record now, they're in some deep hot water.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions. You're right. I have a lot of questions about this. And Trump on Truth Social suggested that he might actually instigate a lawsuit on this. We shall see where that goes. He also made a statement about the Epstein files and more revelations or more pending release, potentially, of those files. We'll get to that in a sec, too. But definitely some questions for the Wall Street Journal and the journalistic standards there on how they handled this story and all of the questions so many of us have. I think my questions probably echo yours. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but listen, this is something everyone's talking about and buzzing about, and frankly, it actually operates, I think, and works in Trump's favor on this whole Epstein saga.
Yeah.
I'll tell you and explain that in a sec, and that's why we're focusing on it. Of course, it's a big deal. Sometimes little things can be big deals. Not the big deal that the Wall Street Journal intended, though. It's 6:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
You get the feeling that Donald Trump at one point last night said, all right, enough is enough. He went to Truth Social and he posted, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I've asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Attorney General Bondi responded and said, President Trump, we're ready to move the court tomorrow to unseal the grand jury transcripts. That would be today. So we shall see what happens there. I have some questions about this story. First of all, how did they don't explain in the article how they obtained this letter? Donald Trump, anybody who's sitting on information like this about Donald Trump that think that it might harm the president, they've had over 10 years to release this information. God knows lesser things have been, or actually more things, bigger things have been released, like the Access Hollywood tape that was released during the 2016 election, right? How did they just stumble upon this thing now, right? And as I often tell our audience here, Patrice, and I try to say it over and over and over again, whenever something is leaked anonymously to the media, there's always a second story that the media won't tell you. Wall Street Journal has a second story that they're sitting on, that they're staying silent about. The story that the Wall Street Journal has right now that they could, get headlines and lots of clicks for and get lots of attention for is the story about who gave them this letter, when they got it, what terms they may have had on releasing it, why they didn't actually show a picture of this so-called letter to Jeffrey Epstein instead of just telling us what the letter says. Who gave it to you and why? That's a big part of the story, which is left out because, of course, they agreed to keep that a secret. See, whenever the media is in the business of revealing a story but keeping part of it secret and they have to agree to keep it secret, well, then they're not in the business of telling you the truth and the whole truth. They're in the business of telling you a directed, planned narrative that somebody has concocted, and that's what's happened here. Why didn't they publish the whole letter in full? Why did they only just reinterpret and tell us what the letter says? And by the way, they haven't been able to produce one example of Donald Trump delivering a similar note like this to anybody that's part typewritten, part handwritten. They haven't been able to do that at all. Or have they been able to explain why the writing style is so different than how Donald Trump speaks and writes in everyday life? That's, again, calls into question the validity of all of this. And what standards did they use to go with the story? How was it validated? They don't go into that in the article either.
Good question. I mean, really what the article, all it starts out is saying Ghislaine Maxwell compiled a bunch of letters in a leather-bound book for a 50th birthday present, and they obtained this document from President Trump. That was it. I think it's interesting to read President Trump's response on Truth Social, where he says, Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch personally were warned that this supposed letter printed was a fake, and if they printed, they would be sued. Interestingly so, to continue down, Mr. Murdoch stated that he would take care of, but obviously did not have the power to do so. The editor of the Wall Street Journal, Emma Tucker, was told directly by Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, and by President Trump himself that the letter was a fake. And the Wall Street Journal's editor, Ms. Tucker, said she didn't want to hear that. Instead, they were going to go with, President Trump says, quote, with a false, malicious, and defamatory story anyway. I mean, this is explosive. And if President Trump proves that this was absolutely false and made up, I think Emma Tucker is going to face some serious consequences, and the Wall Street Journal is going to face some serious consequences. I understand they are looking for something to publish and something salacious, and a little stick figure of a woman with boobs like a fifth grade boy would write on a piece of paper lends itself well to the idea of Jeffrey Epstein as a peddler of teenage girls and women and children. I think it's almost a little bit too nice how that's wrapped up into a bow, that President Trump is joking about what's his name, Epstein's, predilection for girls in this way, like in the way that a teenage boy, a pre-adolescent boy would be. I just think it seems manufactured to me.
Two things real fast, because you said this is a blockbuster. You think the actual contents of this article is a blockbuster if they're true? Or do you think
they wanted it to be a blockbuster.
Yeah. I don't, even if everything about this story is true, it's a dud. Even if the story is true, which it isn't. I don't think it is, in my opinion. But here's the funny thing about this, and a lot of people pointed it out, it's hardly an original thought. We actually have the diary of Joe Biden's daughter. It's been validated. We know that it's her diary. And in her own hand, she speculates about whether she was molested by her father, and she details how her father would shower with her. And no one in legitimate, professional, dignified journalism would ever touch such a story. The Wall Street Journal, I don't think, has ever even mentioned Joe Biden's daughter's diary, let alone published it as a big blockbuster. So why publish this about Donald Trump? I think the question answers itself. 6:23.
All right, coming up, Tim Graham over at NewsBusters is going to join us to talk about the Colbert show ending on CBS and everything else going on in Washington. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
6:36 now on O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 7:05, Byron York will join us. 8:05, the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. And at 8:35, Representative Jason Smith, Ways and Means Chair. It's Larry O'Connor with Patrice Onwuka. And Patrice, I'm trying to get through this fast because we got Tim Graham here, Media Research Center, NewsBusters, and we got a lot to get to with him.
Exactly.
It's a banner day, Patrice. First, Tim Graham, I worry about your future. You've been executive editor of NewsBusters and, of course, the host of the NewsBusters podcast for many years. But your main focus for so many years has been NPR and PBS and the media. They're still going to be biased, but the stakes are kind of gone now because we're not paying for it anymore.
Well, we don't fail to go after MSNBC because they don't take our tax dollars.
Fair enough.
You know, I love to constantly say PBS equals MSNBC. NPR equals MSNBC. PBS's White House reporter, Laura Barone Lopez, is going to MSNBC, and there's no difference.
Yeah. Well, and Yamiche Alcindor, of course, went from PBS to MSNBC and back and forth. It's all a bit of a revolving door. Tim, are you surprised, though, at the very end of the day, they really did go out with a whimper. First, they demanded that this was an assault on the First Amendment and free speech, and then they claimed that they weren't, in fact, biased and didn't have any sort of they were completely objective. Finally, their last argument at the end of the day was, you need us for emergency alerts if there's a flood. That's sad.
Yes. Well, because nobody believes them when they go and said, we're objective. Really. Donald Trump's a fascist and we're objective. That is what they were left with. And the fact of the matter is we reported last week in the Texas floods. You go to the Facebook page of Texas Public Radio, they had nothing on the floods for 19 hours. But they did have a Facebook post saying, please save our taxpayer money. Call your senators.
Well, I think folks are going to wake up and realize, they probably didn't need all of our tax dollars to indoctrinate our children. I remember the Elmo specials about different fur colors and needing certain brown fur animals on Sesame Street needed circles where they could, heal together in 2020 because of the race riots. It was just ridiculous, Tim. I want to shift, though, over to the Wall Street Journal and what they think it was supposed to be a blockbuster exclusive story with this letter written to Jeffrey Epstein by Donald Trump, allegedly, which President Trump denies. What flaws do you see in just the journalistic integrity of, the Wall Street Journal going with this story, which, looks pretty questionable to most just regular watchers or readers?
Well, if you can't produce the actual letter, it makes it a little hard for people to believe you. I mean, it starts there. Look, we've had this problem since Donald Trump came down the escalator, is that people get so excited to try to destroy him that the standards of evidence, there almost doesn't need to be a standard of evidence because, well, when Donald Trump says you're unfair, nobody believes him. This is the same mentality that a lot of media outlets have, and that is, getting that win, getting that scoop, is more important than ultimately getting it right.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people refer to the Wall Street Journal as a right-of-center publication, I guess because it's owned by News Corp and Rupert Murdoch. But if anyone pays attention to their news reporting, it's pretty much the same as the Times and the Post, et cetera, et cetera. I do wonder about the editorial judgment on this and whether they should be compelled to disclose how they made the decision to run with this story, why they didn't actually show the letter itself, who leaked the letter to them, what the terms of that leak was. You know, there's a story behind this story, Tim, as there always is. And I would think if they want to maintain their credibility, they might be compelled to tell us that story.
Well, this is one of the reasons we do what we do, and that is the news media often are arrogant and say, you don't get to ask us how we made this sausage.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And of course, the other part of this, as we just discussed with the public broadcasters, is that they expect that they will win based on their legacy reputation. We've been around for 100 years, so don't look behind the curtain. It is important that the news media be held up to as much examination as our leaders are. I mean, a lot of times we have journalists who think that they get to run the country, so why shouldn't they be open to as much scrutiny as they put the politicians through?
Yeah. Well, shifting on over to Colbert, we hear now that we're going to be losing a late night show over at CBS. I think that the argument still remains the same. I get late night as comedy, and supposed to poke fun at politics, at people, at pop culture. But it seemed like they just double, triple, quadruple down on hating Donald Trump. And not surprisingly, a lot of people don't want that when they're trying to, wind down with a nightcap before going to bed.
Absolutely. Our Alex Christie at NewsBusters watches all the late night shows and has spreadsheets about their jokes. And yeah, we call it the People's Republic of late night because it really is just remarkably over to the left. It's not designed for a general audience. I mean, the closest thing to that is Jimmy Fallon, who mocks the president, but at least it's like a, hey, we're joking. But this show in particular has just been, they have these let's have 20 minutes discussing the wonders of socialism with Elizabeth Warren. Gosh, why aren't we popular? And so what surprised me in this, and maybe it shouldn't, but they were like, the Colbert Show has 200 employees. You're like, wow, okay, see, that seems fairly expensive. I was just looking this morning. Do you know that the state of New York gave CBS like $14 million in tax subsidies to keep the show in New York? How's that for a nice little sweetener?
Wow. Oh, interesting.
Just to keep the Ed Sullivan Theater doing that. Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen to the Ed Sullivan Theater now, because they're not going to do What do you think that they're going to do, like a late night news program now instead? Because clearly they're more interested in politics and news than they are in comedy and entertainment. Right.
I mean, I'm going to guess, Larry, we're at a point now where they're going to let people run syndicated programming after the news. It sounds like they're just going to leave a gaping hole there.
That's what they did before they brought Letterman over from NBC. That's all they did.
Right.
So,
right. I just think in today's day and age where, look, we're at a point now where streaming has more viewers than broadcast TV and cable TV combined. That's where we are now. So the whole economic model is changing.
To that end, Tim Graham, real fast, NPR and PBS obviously are not going to go anywhere. These are multi-million-dollar organizations. They're just not going to get corporate or government funding anymore. What do you expect to happen there? Are they going to actually go commercial, sell advertisements, or they're going to up their appeals for bigger grants and bigger donors? Are they going to cut their expenses? What's going to happen?
Oh, I think they're going to have to cut their expenses. And I think, obviously, we had a debate among conservatives where they're like, well, if you take away their government money, they're going to get all their money from George Soros, and they're going to be even worse. To which we responded, define worse than now.
Yeah, really. How could it get any worse?
My whole long crusade on this is based on the outrage at the principle that they were going to take the tax money of the Republican voting half of America and kick them in the keister with it. Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to survive, they're just going to not have as much money. And, of course, we got to watch out because if the Democrats get back in control of power, if both hosts of Congress and president, they're going to try to restart it.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing, too. Vote for me so I can refund NPR. I'd love for that to be a campaign message. Tim Graham, congratulations on all the great work you and your amazing team at MRC and NewsBusters have done. You really have led the way for decades on this, and all the Bozels involved should be very proud of themselves. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
6:45.
Friday on the Derek Hunter Show, Congress is on the cusp of cutting NPR and PBS funding. Can you smell it? That's the smell of fear. It's delicious. We'll talk about it at 3 o'clock on WMAL.
Oh, my. It's 6:51 now. It's O'Connor and Company. And as we're learning more about this rescission package that cut a lot of foreign aid, we're getting some details. One of them revealed yesterday by the Senate committee that oversees DOGE, as it were. That would be Joni Ernst, the senator from Iowa, who heads that up. Here's the headline. Biden administration spent over $1 million on swimming pool upgrades in war-torn countries. Not even swim. First of all, I don't want my government paying for swimming pool upgrades anywhere. That's not the federal government's job unless it's on a military base. Secondly, in other foreign countries. Here we are. We're America. We're going to upgrade your swimming pools. What the hell are we doing, Patrice?
Here you go. In Zimbabwe, the State Department approved an upgrade to a U.S. residence missions residence. Pool covers costing more than $130,000. I mean, I don't own a pool, but I'm pretty sure you could find one that a pool cover that costs a little bit less than that. We also spent $40,000 for a pool sewer pump replacement in Moscow.
Why do we have a swimming pool in Moscow? Who needs
Iraq?
a
Well, okay, maybe not Moscow, but in Iraq, we spent $444,000 upgrading an indoor dehumidification system for our Baghdad embassy. So wouldn't the indoor pool be? Well, I guess it's so hot in Baghdad that you need to have it indoors. I get this is just ridiculous, wasteful spending that no one should be defending. There should be nobody willing to defend this.
Give the Army and Navy raises before you do stuff like this. It's 6:53.